Professor Quignard and his dedicated team of scientists were working in the scientific laboratory and were working on their research projects. Among the array of complex machinery and scientific equipment, a worker brought a mysterious box carefully packed that indicated that something very special was present inside the box. Two dedicated scientists, Nadine and Philippe, stepped forward to unlock the mystery box. With bated breath, they slowly lift the lid, revealing a surprising and heartwarming sight: a small, fluffy penguin chick nestled within the confines of the container. The laboratory momentarily falls silent, punctuated only by the gentle cooing of the adorable creature. Professor Quignard's eyes widen with wonder as he realizes the significance of this unexpected find. Nadine and Philippe exchange looks of astonishment and excitement, knowing that this little penguin could hold the key to their groundbreaking research and the coveted Nobel Prize. The penguin was the research model for the future discoveries of Professor Quignard and his lab fellows. Nadine and Philippe were all set and ready to carry out the experimental procedures for future research. With careful precision, they gently restrained the young penguin, whose curious eyes dart around the room, seemingly unfazed by the impending experiment. As the atmosphere grows tense with anticipation, the scientists expertly administer the specialized protein into the penguin's bloodstream. The tiny creature flinches momentarily, emitting a soft chirp, before settling back into a state of curious tranquility. Nadine and Philippe meticulously monitor the penguin's vital signs, noting any subtle changes in its physiology with careful attention. Scientists wanted to shift Penguini to a safe house which lay right next to the professor's lab. They called their research student, Christophine, to shift the penguin to a safe house. She gently picked it up and went to the house, where she was surprised to see so many penguins in a cold environment. The environment of the house was made exactly according to the habitat of penguins. As soon as Christophine dropped the penguin on the ice, it felt unconscious. She became very scared and worried for the little penguin and started to give CPR to it. As a result, it regained consciousness. She sighed a breath of relief. But soon she realized that she had frozen herself. She started to feel so cold. Quignard told her that Nadine forgot to adjust the temperature of the safe house. She was suffering from hyperthermia. Quignard and Nadine covered her with a sheet to provide her warmth and to rescue her. Professor Quignard approaches Christophine, assigning her a critical role in the next phase of their penguin research, as he is impressed by the care she provides to the little penguin. With a gentle yet determined demeanor, he entrusts her with significant responsibility, emphasizing the importance of delving into the depths of the book he hands her, a key resource for their ongoing studies. Christophine, her gaze reflecting a mix of determination and reverence for the professor, accepts the task with a nod, displaying a deep sense of commitment to the research and a desire to prove her worth within the team. As she delves into the contents of the book, the camera lingers on her absorbed expression, showcasing her intellectual curiosity and eagerness to contribute meaningfully to the project. Meanwhile, amidst the hum of activity in the laboratory, another research student, visibly attracted to Christophine, musters the courage to approach her for a dinner date. Nervous and fidgety, he stammers through his invitation, his eyes reflecting both hope and apprehension. However, Christophine, immersed in her work and seemingly focused solely on her duties, politely declines the invitation, her gentle yet resolute rejection casting a shadow of disappointment over the hopeful young man's face. Professor Quignard was in a very tense situation because he was not permitted by a scientific board to carry out research experiments on humans. The next day he came up with the plan that he destroy all the data of his lab so that he could make excuses in front of board members and demand more time for his further research. The Board of Governors gave him the time of 1 complete month to complete his research. Quignard bounded himself in a safe house and was very depressed. His fellow members were very worried about him. Christophine was also very worried about him, as she was attracted and in love with Professor Quignard. She decided to inject that protein injections on her body. She informed him about this, but Quignard didn't even bother to stop her, as he became so selfish in the race of his research and experimentation. He wanted to use the body of Christophine for his research purposes. After injecting herself with injections, Christophine felt unconscious. As soon as she regained consciousness, she found herself confined within a sterile glass enclosure. She found Professor Quignard standing in front of her. He explained to her that now she would be her new research model. She has to live in the lab because he wanted to monitor the minor and major changes every minute in Christophine's body for his research. His words drip with a calculated callousness, acknowledging her sacrifice with a twisted sense of gratitude for her unwitting contribution to their scientific pursuits. Quignard was thinking something in the lab, and after critical thinking, he decided to give the whole responsibility of his lab to Philippe and Nadine so that he would be able to focus his complete attention on his future research. Quignard moved to the safe house where he ordered Christophine to get undressed so that he was able to use her body for his future research, but she felt a little uncomfortable. As soon as Quignard touched her body, she started to get normalized and fell into the world of pleasure as she started liking him. She also had to go through electric shocks. Quignard gave her the diet chart to follow and gave her an instrument to record every activity. Christophine had to go through different experiments which made her feel exhausted both mentally and physically. Christophine excitedly asked Quignard about the dinner date, but he refused by saying that he had some other plans. She felt heartbroken as she was madly in love with him. She went to the other part of the lab with tears in her eyes. She met the same lab fellow who proposed to her for a dinner date. He was sad about the death of his experimental mice. But when he saw Christophine in a sad and heartbroken state, he started to console her. During this, they started to get intimate with each other. The next day, when Quignard was in the lab and working on his research, he started to get excited as the protein in the body of Christophine was activated. He came to know that due to the physical involvement, hormones were produced that caused the activation of proteins. To further confirm his experiments, he put injections in her body, but no blood came out of her body. That activated protein provided a strong immunity in the body of Christophine. She became resistant. His experiments finally became successful. He became so happy but didn't care about the health situation of Christophine, who provided her body to him for the success of his experimental research. Quignard announced the success of his experimentation and research to his lab fellows, who cheered him up for the success. Everyone was so happy. But soon he realized that the effect and activation of protein was short-lived. Christophine gave her a suggestion that maybe for further activation of an immunity protein, she needed to get intimate again. Quignard asked her to get intimate again with her lab fellow, but she said she had no interest in him and needed someone trustworthy. After thinking so much, Quignard decided to get intimate with her. They got intimate, but surprisingly, no protein was activated in the Christophine body. He asked her what positions they used for physical involvement. Christophine showed all the positions on paper. They tried all of them, but they were not able to achieve the results. The scene then shifted to other research scientists in labs who were busy conducting experiments on mice. Quignard willingly got attracted to Christophine and again got intimate with her. Due to all these experiments, she was very tired. Quignard asked her to take a rest. The following day, as the morning light filters through the laboratory windows, Christophine awakens to a startling realization. Her once familiar body feels alien, exhibiting subtle yet significant changes that send a ripple of fear and confusion through her being. With trembling hands, she attempts to communicate her distress to Professor Quignard, seeking solace and understanding in the face of her alarming transformation. However, as she approaches the professor, consumed by a sense of urgency and vulnerability, she is met with an unwavering focus on his research, his attention wholly absorbed by the intricate details of their experiments. Christophine's voice falters in the presence of his indifference, her attempts to articulate her distress drowned out by the relentless hum of scientific inquiry that has come to define their shared reality. The weight of betrayal and isolation presses heavily upon her, the profound disconnect between her emotional turmoil and the single-minded determination of the professor casting a shadow of desolation over her spirit. In a moment of quiet resolve, Christophine gathers her belongings, her footsteps echoing through the empty corridors as she silently departs from the laboratory, her departure unnoticed amidst the all-encompassing pursuit of scientific discovery. The next day, Quignard gathered his team members to announce the failure of his experiments. But before he spoke, Philippe and Nadine announced the success of their experiments on mice. They said that orgasm in mice was responsible for activating proteins in their body. He felt so happy that finally his struggle became successful, but he felt worried about Christophine. He called her but she didn't respond. Quignard received worldwide appreciation for his great discovery, but still, he was missing Christophine. Christophine noticed so many major changes in her body. The professors and scientists in the lab also noticed the same changes in the body of mice. Their feet started to appear like penguins. Quignard now came to know why Christophine was not meeting him. He went to her house and found him sitting in the ice bath. He wanted to help Christophine. He took her to the lab. Philippe and Nadine gave the death news to Quignard that the experimental mice were dead. Quignard came to know that if no solution was to be made, Christophine could also die. He was very worried about her as he started to feel attracted towards Christophine. Christophine gave him a suggestion to send her to Antarctica so that she would be able to live. Quignard sent her to Antarctica for the sake of her survival, but he was not able to come out of the emotions and feelings of Christophine. He decided to inject himself with the same injections he used on Christophine. He also went to Antarctica to live his remaining life with her.